Welcome, Eclipse Dawn here. I am sitting outside in the backyard. It's a beautiful day. It's been a beautiful day. Let's see. Going to use all of my decks right now. And I've been intuitively guided today. Sometimes Spirit speaks very loud. And I started hearing some messages about understanding others, being misunderstood, about how we all have our own perceptions based on our experiences in our life. So that means that we're always seeing through the filter of our own experiences, our past, our history, all the way through to our past lives, our genealogy, and to really truly be someone who desires to be understood or to understand others. We all have to come to this greater understanding that you can only speculate. The only time when it's not speculation is when you match up vibrationally, and through having been through the same or similar experience, you can match up vibrationally with someone and truly understand them, not to the deepest degree that one can only understand themselves with their relationship with Creator, with Spirit, but enough to line up with attention to that particular understanding, which creates healing energy, which creates a space for Spirit or God energy or Creator to do the work, the healing work. So I hope that makes sense. And the message was a lot about people who have suffered from depression, or even more so manic depression, what they call bipolar, schizophrenia, one who is so sensitive to everything that hallucinations or delusions, right, start to become actual delusions and actual hallucinations, because we as a society haven't come back to the understanding that some of it is vision and Spirit speaking to you and life trying to get through to you, and it can become not trying to get through you, it's just life coming through to you. And depending on your sensitivity level and also just the way you were born and all sorts of things, your karma, it could be too much. You know, I really feel like a lot of it is just that it's too much for our sensitive bodies. There's some kind of, imbalance there between our ability to receive what life is bringing to us, what Spirit is bringing to us, always, every day, life and experience. It's like short-circuiting sometimes, or it's an imbalance sometimes. But for Spirit, we're all the same. It's the mechanism of the body, the brain, the nervous system, and also the mechanism of life that we all are creating, co-creating together. And it's not that life is out of balance, because it would take a lot more for all life to be out of balance. But there is an imbalance within the life that we're co-creating. So those who are depressed or ... all of the other they are misunderstood a lot. They're misunderstood and they're hurt a lot. They tend to even, they've have studies about the correlation between PTSD and bipolar, for example. Just, you tend to be misunderstood and mistreated. And when you build on top of some form of imbalance or malfunction, or mutation even, I'm not saying that people like that are mutants. It could be a mutation towards something, or maybe, most people are mutated. I don't know which way it goes, mutation is evolution, right? It's just a sudden change, or something that doesn't fit quite in the norm, right? It can build and, add some kind of trauma or some experiences that even as a young child, some people don't even remember or block out of their memory. Or maybe it's something that's happened repeatedly. Maybe it's something that happened once, It could be years of experiences. It could be all sorts of things. For a person who does things that don't make sense to others, or is an outcast or an outsider, just misunderstood because they're not well, they're hurting, they're, a person who's truly depressed, they really can't get themselves to do the daily things. It's not just because they're lazy or they're tired, although they feel tired a lot of the time. We're talking about a much bigger mountain to climb than just inhibition. So I had a lot of messages come through, and I'm not sure how this is correlated, but also just about self-care, and that it's important to know, and this is just what I've learned to be true through my studies and my experiences, that we carry, in a way, through our energetic bodies, past life agreements, contracts, and I don't like to use the word contracts. It's just a very narrow way of looking at it, but a lot of times they're agreements you made with yourself through that lifetime, due to your experiences or influences from life, okay? And it's part of your karma, but it's part of your story, and your story you can change. Some of your karma you can't per se change the way that you can change your story. We can change our story all the time. So part of our story throughout lifetimes would be a deep, deep agreement that you make within yourself that you may not even be conscious of. Most of the deepest agreements will be ones that you're not conscious of. And there's reasons for that we don't need to get into right now. But, because we're talking about psychology and all of that. But it's important to understand that these things pass through our lifetimes. And if you have some kind of, let's say, issue, which I just mean is something that you don't want to be that way, but you can't really change it, or you feel like you can't change it, you're having a hard time, or it's going slow, or I keep coming back to it, it could be because a very deep subconscious agreement you've made with yourself from this life or past lives. And a lot of the time, it repeats itself because of one of the laws of the universe is law of attraction, right? So it repeats itself. It's about the perception of it. But we can't just change our perception and say, oh, well, that was for the greater good or whatever. We can say that all we want, but how do you change that in your experience of this deep, deep soul level agreement you've made? So, for example, Spirit was talking to me about self-care and why some people have a hard time with self-care. A lot of us do. I know I do sometimes. We do it in different ways, right? So, for example, some people might perceive self-care, that's truly self-care, as something else because of this past agreement that they've made through their experiences throughout their lifetimes. So, taking care of yourself is selfish. Putting on makeup is vain. or bathing is vain. This is extreme, but eating enough is, you're taking from others. Being happy, someone's going to steal from you. These deep agreements we make, what if it's like Spirit says, what if you perceived brushing your teeth as vanity? Somehow that got put into one of your agreements. And what if you agreed to never be vain and to deny vanity at all costs? Then you're denying that form of self-care, brushing your teeth, right? Because that's vain. You've associated with that, and you've sworn to yourself to never be vain. So that's just an example, okay? You could swear to yourself that you'll never be beautiful, because being beautiful means you'll be raped. You could There's a deer, a big buck. I'm a little frightened because he's big. Okay. Can I tell you? That's very unexpected. And I was just banging the rocks to clear the energy, and for the buck. So I have to tell you, I know I'm off subject now, but right before I started this talk and this reading, I was sitting here lighting my amber resin here in this cauldron, and which I think we need some more. Amber resin is sap. Okay. So I'm sitting here and I'm using my goose wing, and the buck comes up behind me, and I saw him, just his foot and like part of his big horn around the corner, and he went stomp, 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 which communicates, get the fuck out of my way, okay? And so I went up by the water to get higher ground and look, but he had left. And again, just when I was having this talk, he came back around the other side. And they come here to eat. I don't think he's here to get me, but it's a just made my heart flutter just a little bit because they're very big animals. And there's no reason for me to actually be afraid of a buck unless, you know, you come face to face to one. They could get, you know, frightened by you and charge. But anyways, you know, when animals make themselves present to you, even, you know, earlier I saw a grasshopper, birds, cats, dogs. When animals appear, they're bringing a message from the universe. It works that way because they have less, I guess the word is resistance, which is, I think, something that Abraham Hicks says. I used to listen to that. I don't really listen to that anymore. It did help me through sometimes in my life, but when I was learning about law of attraction and everything, they have less resistance to the energy flow. And it's just because of a lot of what I'm talking about, just self-perception, agreements we make throughout lives, influences by others, especially through traumatic experiences, especially because as a means to survive, we make agreements to keep ourselves safe. And in some circumstances, for example, it is not safe to be smart. We all know it can be unsafe to be spiritually adept, and unsafe to express artistically, unsafe to be a woman, unsafe to be a man, unsafe to be someone who is not a woman or a man, unsafe to live in a certain neighborhood or a certain part of the planet or near water or somewhere cold. And the buck is still there. It's good to understand this because it goes on such a minute level that it's even the way that our brains learn and our nervous system functions, all the way through past life experiences, agreements, contracts, karma, soul relationships, repetitive, circular, spiral energy. So I hope that makes sense. Let's start with the reading. It's starting to get chilly. So this reading, Spirit wanted me to do in front of Kuan Yin for people who are trying to understand depression or other mental imbalances or even borderline personality disorder. Be it because that's something that you've been diagnosed with, or someone you love, or maybe you're not sure if it's you or someone you love, or you're just curious. First of all, Spirit wants you to understand that you're doing the right work. You're taking action in the direction that will actually benefit you. That it, for example, the holy work, although that's kind of a scary term for some people, the sacred work, the steps of the ladder that go to your well-being. The vertebrae of a backbone I'm even seeing. And this detail-oriented stuff that you might be having to do or wanting to do or doing is going to benefit you. It's building, and there's more work to be done, but you've actually got more done now than you'll have to do on this particular journey. So you're more than halfway through. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to spiral back again. The thing is it's the ability to feel that is a hindrance, a detriment, or imbalance